You're listening to Station 11.3, one of the last voices left on the shortwave. If you're out there, if you can hear me, I hope you found some high ground, something sturdy, something that doesn't hum. Because the ground hums now. I don't mean the machines. There are barely any left. No power grids, no satellites. The GPS went blind when the magnetosphere collapsed. Airplanes fell like drunk birds. Ships ran aground in places where the oceans shouldn't be. I'm talking about the Earth itself. The crust shudders. Compasses spin like they've lost their minds, and maybe we all have. But if you sit still long enough, real still, you'll feel it too. A low vibration, like the planet is growling from within. I used to laugh when the science channels said this would happen eventually. Eventually came quicker than we thought. The magnetic poles flipped. North became south. Radiation belts shredded. Auroras burned blood red as far south as the equator. The sky cracked open, and nothing's been the same since. No one could prepare for how fast it all unraveled. It started with birds, flocks of them crashing into buildings, spiraling mid-air. Whales beached themselves by the hundreds. Then came the airports. Runways closed, air traffic frozen. Panic surged through the fiber of everything we thought was solid. Then the grid collapsed. When the magnetic field destabilized, solar winds punched holes in the atmosphere. We lost power plants to geomagnetic surges. Transformers exploded like fireworks. Most of the northern hemisphere lost power in days. Then weeks passed, then months. And now here we are, broadcasting on a cranked-up shortwave powered by a salvaged truck battery and what's left of a solar rig. The cities are ruins. They didn't fall in fire like the old movies said they would. No mushroom clouds. No zombies. Just entropy. Nature gnawed at the edges and society crumbled inwards. Once the power went, water treatment stopped. Refrigeration died. Looting spread. We didn't starve because we couldn't find food. We starved because we couldn't keep it safe or cold or unspoiled. And the radiation, they said it would be manageable, temporary, but it wasn't. With no magnetosphere shielding us, cosmic radiation crept in. Slow, invisible, irreversible. Skin cancers exploded, electronics fried, whole hospitals went offline from unfiltered solar pulses. I remember the last time I saw a working TV. President looked like he was sweating acid. He said FEMA was deploying shelters, that the Pentagon had contingency plans. But the camera cut out in the middle of a sentence. Just blinked away. That was, what, 8 months ago? A year? Hard to measure time now. Clocks still work, technically, but days don't feel like they used to. Some nights we get 18 hours of darkness. Other times the sun hangs up there longer than it should. The Earth's tilt is off. Maybe the rotation too. Tides are unpredictable. Animals are behaving like they're drunk or possessed. Entire coastlines shifted. New York City's waterfront, gone, swallowed. The Hudson overflowed and never went back. The Mississippi runs in 2 directions now, at least according to a guy who came through 2 weeks ago. Said it split near St. Louis. I believe him. The rivers don't obey anymore, nothing does. Civilization is pockets, scattered settlements, barter towns, outposts around working wells or scavenged solar rigs. There's no government anymore, no centralized anything. Just local power. Whoever's got the food, the bullets, the water filters, and of course there's the deep quiet. I'm not talking about the silence of a world without cars or airplanes. I'm talking about them, the areas where radios won't transmit, not even static. Places where your compass freezes and birds refuse to fly overhead. Where shadows linger a little too long, and the wind carries voices you don't remember speaking. No one stays long in the quiet, not even the raiders. Yeah, they're still out there. Those who live by taking. They roll through small settlements, like they're cleaning up after a feast. But even they avoid the quiet zones. Makes you wonder what's truly changed in the Earth. What's moving beneath it. I'm here in what used to be central Wyoming. High elevation, dry air, low population before the flip. Now it's just me and the tower I patched up from a community college radio club. They had a Faraday cage around it somehow. It survived. I survived. Barely. So if you're out there, you're not alone. Not completely. This is Station 11.3, broadcasting from the edge of nowhere. The magnetic field is gone. The old maps are useless. The weather is unstable. The days are strange. The night's stranger, but we're still here. And as long as we're still here, there's still something worth saying. I am the voice behind the crackle. I'm the one you hear when the static clears and the world feels a little less empty. My name is Marisol Sol Ortega, and I broadcast on whatever frequency still hums to life. I used to be a geophysicist. Studying the planet's magnetic field was my life's work. Now I'm its last witness. Before the flip, I had a lab, grants, conferences. I published papers about geomagnetic reversals, cosmic radiation, and the protective shield that keeps life from frying under solar storms. Those papers felt important then. Esoteric, but promising. Now, they're relics, footnotes in a history no one cares to read. The field I dedicated myself to betrayed me, and now I betray it back by telling the story in real time. Every morning, if you still measure by morning, I climb the rickety ladder to the transmitter shack atop this ridge. My body aches from the climb. Muscles I never used cry out in protest. But this climb is a ritual, a tether to who I was. I check the batteries, plug in the generator, and sweep my hand over the microphone grill. Station 11.3, good whatever it is to you. And I begin. Food is scavenged. Canned beans, hard biscuits, protein bars that survived because no one thought to grab them when the looters raided the stores. I forage wild herbs, mountain sage, bitter roots, trying to remember which ones don't give you diarrhea. I've burned half my clothes keeping warm on those nights when the temperature plummets below 30 degrees. My parka is patched with duct tape and hope. My boots held together with braided leather cord I braided myself. I haven't had a proper shower in months. The solar still I rigged from PVC pipes and glass panes produces only enough water for my transmitter and a cup of tea. I ration the rest. Some days I taste more grit than comfort, but I remind myself, clean or not, if you stop broadcasting, you might as well stop breathing. There are losses I carry. My brother Alberto was out on a field survey when the poles flipped. He called me that morning, his voice panicked. Sol, it's happening. The compass is the sky, then nothing. I traced his last ping to a downed research plane in the Rockies. I never recovered his body. His recorder sits on my bunk. Its battery's dead. Some nights I cradle it like a child and weep. My roommate, or what's left of them, was a technician named Omar. We met at a water purification plant near Cheyenne. He had maps of underground aquifers and a calculator that actually worked. He helped me build the solar rig. Then one night, raiders came. I managed to drive them off with flares, but Omar stayed to lock down the shelter. He didn't make it. The bullet holes in the door still smell like iron in my nightmares. There's a guilt that settles in my bones. Survivor's guilt is like a ghost friend who never leaves. I talk to them on air sometimes when the air is especially hollow. Shout out to Alberto and Omar. I hope you're listening. The microphones don't answer back, but I know they're there, somewhere beyond the veil. I talk for them too. What keeps me going is responsibility. I'm the thread connecting whoever's left. Every broadcast is a promise. I'm still here. You're still here. It's a fragile lifeline. I pass along weather reports. I've learned to read the skies. Again, ash clouds drifting east. Dust storms forming ready to swallow valleys. Swollen rivers cutting through dry plains. I warn of solar flares. My instruments pick up their whispers and advise you to shut off anything plugged in. If you heed it, you survive a little longer. Then there's the human news. Letters I've taped to trees near supply routes. Messages scratched on bark. My name is Jenna. I'm with 3 kids and an old dog. We're heading to Montrose. I repeat them on air. Sometimes responses crackle back. Meet us at mile marker 47. I list coordinates, though I'm not sure they're still accurate. Still, It's hope. Hope is why I keep the journal. It's a battered notebook chained to my thigh in a weatherproof pouch. I write dates that feel arbitrary. Day 304 since the flip. Day 312 we heard wolves in the canyons. Day 320 when the aurora painted the sky green. I document the little victories. A working wind turbine someone left behind. A fruit tree stubborn enough to bear fruit in the wasteland. A group of refugees who saved water for a week just to hear one of my broadcasts. My mind wanders, though. I think of the world that was. Concrete jungles, humming cities, endless blue skies. I remember laughter in crowded cafes. The smell of coffee brewing at dawn. The freedom to walk beneath an unfiltered sun. I question whether those memories are real or dreams. Memory is a slippery thing when time loses meaning. Still, I hold on to them because they remind me what we fight for. This isn't just about surviving another day of cosmic radiation or scrounging for dry wood. It's about preserving our stories, our humanity. Every life saved, every person reunited, every note of kindness passed on. It's a defiance against the darkness. So I broadcast. I stoke the fires of connection with my words. I share survival tips, how to filter mud water with charcoal and cloth, how to navigate by the stars when compasses lie, how to treat radiation burns with aloe and clean bandages. I share warnings, storms coming, raiders scouting, landslides in thaw zones. And I share hope, rumors of settlement, glimpses of green in the poisoned soil, the idea that one day, maybe one day, we'll rebuild. I'm Marisol Ortega. I survived the flip. I broadcast from the edge of oblivion so you know how much you matter. This voice is more than static. It's a promise. We endure, we remember, we keep fighting, and as long as I breathe, I will speak. I've got some bad news and I wish I didn't have to be the one to tell you. But you're tuned in, ears open, heart racing. So here it comes. Survival is getting harder by the hour. The flip marked the beginning of the end, but the crisis we're facing now is one we can neither talk nor joke our way out of. Strap in. First, the water. Remember when you could turn a tap and watch a steady stream of clear liquid carve its path to your glass? That was a civilization luxury, one we burned through without a second thought. Now, water is currency, and the banks are empty. I've been monitoring 3 wells in this zone. One older windmill rig in the northern gulch, a spring-fed cistern patched from an old municipal reservoir, and a deep borehole just east of here, where the drilling rig left behind twisted steel. Of those 3, only the reservoir is still flowing, but only if you can pump it fast enough. The windmill blade snapped months ago, and the diesel pump died a week back when I burned the last liter of fuel scavenged from an abandoned fire truck. Here's the math. Our local consumption, me, plus anyone who shows up at that cistern, requires at minimum 15 liters a day for drinking, minimal cooking, and hygiene. The spring puts out barely 10 liters an hour at best, but only during the cooler hours before the midday sun cooks the aquifer. After sunrise, the flow cuts in half. That means a 4-hour window before it dries out again. People line up at dawn. I warn them. Fill jugs, not backpacks. Backpacks leak, jugs seal. If everyone follows the rule, the line moves. If even one person tries to save time by topping off their backpack, the whole system collapses. Yesterday, someone got impatient, filled a pack, and the zipper tore. We lost 10 liters before anyone noticed. 10 liters. That's breakfast for 5 families. It's not just competition, it's physics. The aquifer is collapsing. The water table dropped 7 meters in the first 3 months after the flip, and it's still falling. Geologists, the few left anyway, warn that many shallow aquifers will run dry within months. There's no rainfall to recharge them. The storms are too irregular. Intense heat soaks up moisture, then dumps it all at once in violent surges that either evaporate or wash away topsoil before it can seep in. I broadcast the updates every sunrise and sunset. Station 11.3 report. Spring flow at Canyon Reservoir is 9.8 LHR at or 5:30 hours. down from 10.2 LHR yesterday. Expected 0. Flow before 1100, borehole remains dry. Wells at Gulch number 2 have lowered to 72 millimeters depth, 6 meters lower than last week. Cistern intake clogged with sediment. Manual clearance underway. I say it matter-of-factly, but inside I'm screaming. Because that data isn't abstract. It's death by dehydration, by infection, by dirty water when the last clean drop is gone. We thought crop failures would be a slow burn, a season here, a bad harvest there. We were wrong. The magnetic flip unleashed climate chaos on a scale no simulation ever predicted. Agricultural belts that once stretched green and golden under mid-latitude sun are now dust bowls and mudslides. The jet stream fractured, monsoons, unleashed torrential rains on hillsides with no vegetation to hold soil in place. Then, weeks of drought baked the mud into brick. I drove out yesterday to the old county fairgrounds, the only farmland still holding some promise, thanks to deep wells and a rain catchment system from years before. The fences are gone, animals, either eaten or driven off. The fields, cracked like a shattered mirror. The pumpkins shriveled black, corn stubble bleached white by sun. They said hop crops might survive heat, but the vines withered halfway up the trellis. We lost 3 harvests in a row. Famine isn't just hunger. It's every system breaking at once. You can't barter corn if there's no seed to sow next year. You can't trade pumpkins for medicine when both rot in transit. You can't keep livestock alive if there's no forage. 30 barnyards out here are empty. The skeletons of chickens rattle in coops. Pig pens stand open to the wind. I learned to forage months ago. Dandelion roots, onion grass, scrub acacia pods. And I share, the recipes on air. How to roast roots under coals. How to leach out bitterness with ash water. How to grind pods into protein powder. But those wild foods can't feed a crowd. They're supplements, not staples. And they're seasonal. Right now, the only green you'll find is in that stubborn kelp growing in reservoirs. Probably full of heavy metals from runoff, but at least it's chlorophyll. I tell you, gather scrub pods at dawn. Rinse in brackish water, roast at 120 degrees Celsius for 2 hours. Grind with mortar into coarse flour. Mix with filtered spring water into flatbreads. Consume within 24 hours. I hear the gratitude in the static replies. Tried it. Not bad. But gratitude doesn't fill bellies for long. Electricity died. Fast. Minutes when the coronal mass ejection struck. We lost transformers in every grid. Big generators blew their windings. In some lucky pockets, small-scale renewables held out. Solar panels and wind turbines that weren't connected to long transmission lines. That's what I'm running on. A 12-panel array scavenged from a movie set, feeding into car batteries wired to an inverter. It gives me 4 hours of broadcast a day, maybe 6 if I cut back on the wattage. Fuel is worse. Diesel drips from rusty barrels at abandoned farms. Gasoline evaporated from open drums or was siphoned by looters. Propane tanks sit green under porches, but who knows if they've got leaks. And wood. You'd think wood is endless, but out here we clear-cut decades ago. The hills look barren. You burn too much wood, and all you get is hot air and no more fire. So I ration power. Broadcast schedule is strict. 0600 0800 local, 1800 2000 local. I wake at 0400 to crank my generator, then switch to battery in time for the morning report. I keep the heater off unless the temperature dips below freezing, so I sleep with layers and hope. Deputy settlements pressure me for more airtime. We need intel on raider movements. We need weather. We need water updates, I hear you. I want to give you 24/7 coverage. But if I slip the schedule, the batteries die, and the signal drops entirely. I warn, use battery power sparingly outside broadcast window. Do not operate electric pumps during solar storm peaks. Shield electronics in foil-lined containers when transmitting to reduce induced currents. Every piece of advice is a saving grace, but also a reminder. We're fragile. In this half-dead world, the strong prey on the weak. Raider gangs roll in modified pickups, sporting scrap metal armor and stolen weapons. They hit settlements like locusts. Fast, brutal, inexorable. I record their numbers from scout reports. 24 armed men, 4 vehicles, muzzle flashes at 2100 hours. Civilians evacuated east. Then I broadcast the warning. Keep your families hidden, make noise traps outside perimeter. Run generators only at low power to avoid detection. Sometimes they take what they want, leave the rest burning. Survivors hide their caches under floorboards, in latrine pits, even in coffins. We whisper strategies on air. Mark your food barrels with old paint lines. Raiders hate colored markings, think they're booby traps. It's a small victory when it works. Then there are the refugees migrating south, following rumors of buffers where the magnetic fallout was weaker. Coastal enclaves, underground bunkers, private compound zones. Groups of 10, 20, 50 travel on foot, sometimes on bicycles carrying everything they can. They show up at my station, haggard faces, blistered feet, children whispering questions in tongues I don't know. I list their names, their needs, their destinations. The Mendoza Party, 6 souls, 1 dog, headed toward Grand Junction. Lost 2 water jugs near mile marker 62. If anyone can spare, let them know. I'll broadcast pickup coordinates. I track, relay, connect. I am the telephone line between strangers. It's what I do. But these movements strain what little we... Giriul. A group of 50 arriving at Canyon Reservoir means a shift from 10 LHR to 12 LHR consumption. Enough to push that reservoir to 0 before noon. I have to choose. Broadcast the refugee plea and risk the spring drying, or keep it. Secret and watch hope starve. I choose hope, always hope. You deserve more than fear. You deserve the science behind the chaos. So I talk through the mechanics, geomagnetic reversal, Earth's liquid iron core convulsed, flipping polarity in a span of days. The dipole field weakened by 95%, exposing used to charged particles. Solar wind and CMEs, solar storms once harmlessly deflected, now barreled in unchecked. They induced currents in long conductors, power lines, pipelines that heated, melted, and exploded. Atmospheric loss, without. Magnetic shielding, upper atmosphere layers eroded, oxygen and water vapor molecules ripped away by solar particles, thinning the air and reducing precipitation cycles. Cosmic radiation, gamma and X-rays penetrate deeper. Skin, lungs, electronics, nothing was safe. Radiation sickness rose exponentially. Mutations in seed stalled agriculture even further. Climatic feedback loops. Vanishing ozone let UV scorch vegetation. Permafrost thaw released methane. Methane trapped more heat. Heat waves baked soils. Drought begot wildfire. Wildfire burned. Forests that once captured carbon. Carbon surged back into atmosphere. The cycle accelerated. I break it down in 10-minute segments, then back to human stories. A solar storm is inbound. Shield your lines. A dust storm will reach you by 1500. Seek shelter in natural caverns or under rock overhangs. Radiation. Spikes peak at 1700. Stay indoors, cover windows with lead-lined drapes if you can. I speak plainly. No jargon. If you can't understand induced currents, I say, electrical surges that fry wires. If you can't grasp ionization, I say invisible lightning in the air. I learned to teach in graduate school. Now I teach for survival. Hope isn't a magic bullet, it's a lifeline as thin as spider silk, and it frays under too much weight. I get letters. We found a cave system rumored to have fresh water. Should we risk it? I answer. Only with 2-day rations, rope, headlamps, and buddy system. And don't go more than 200 meters in. I know some will ignore it. I know some won't have rope. I get calls. There's a scientist in Denver who claims to have built a magnetometer that can restore field pockets. I broadcast. Proceed with caution, could be trap, verify identity, send code phrase, Ironheart. I never hear back. Maybe the code was too obscure, or maybe it's smoke. Or maybe someone got there first and raiders took over the... I get rumors. Underground bunker at 39.7 degree N, 104.9 degree view. Sustained aquaponics. Radio tower intact. I broadcast. Proceed covertly, we don't know who's there. Then nothing. Silence. Maybe it was never true. Maybe it was raider propaganda. All this data, all these warnings, all these facts, they're born of human suffering. I share this not as a spectacle, but as a warning. The crisis isn't abstract. It's every child with cracked lips. It's every parent who can't spoon feed because the spoons are rusted. It's every elder who dies before sunrise because there was no coal for the stove. Yesterday, I got a message from a teacher in Laramie. My classroom stocked with rad-hardened lights, solar projector, maps, all gone. I have 18 kids camping in my basement. They're scared. I gave her nighttime latitude and longitude. Told her to listen at midnight for a supply drop code. I'm in my bunker on that ridge, broadcasting promises into the dark. I pray someone hears. So here's the bottom line. Water is dwindling. Food is failing. Fuel is near zero. Power is rationed. Violence is rising. The climate is unraveling. Radiation is constant. Time is short. If you're listening, don't wait for rescue. There is no rescue. Only survival hour by hour. Your best bet is to form micro-communities. 3 to 5 people, trust-tested. Each with a vital skill, medic, forager, mechanic, radio operator, hunter. Share resources, share knowledge. Keep your energy use low, rotate shifts, keep morale up. Know that at the edge of every crisis is a decision. Despair or action. Despair is easy. Action is painful. But action keeps you alive, so get moving. Take this broadcast as your blueprint. I'll update you at sunrise and sunset. I'll relay your messages, your pleas, your warnings. I'll teach you what I've learned, from filter designs to frostbite treatments to radiation bandages. I'll do it as long as this battery holds a charge and this rig stands, because the crisis is here. We're in it together. And if we can face it with open eyes, clear minds, and fierce hearts, maybe, just maybe, we'll see another dawn. By now you know the wells are drying, the fields are barren, the power grid is gone. Tonight, I bring you the domino effect. One system fails and the next tumbles in short order. A convoy of 3 refitted tanker trucks rolled toward Canyon Reservoir yesterday, their drivers promising backup supplies. They never arrived. Tracks end 20 miles east where the tanker shells lie rusting. Footprints lead into the sagebrush, and that's it. Either the drivers succumbed to dehydration, or they were ambushed. Either way, the water never came. My radio receives crackle from 3 outposts I counted on. Red Butte, Echo Ridge, and 2 Pines. All silent. Midnight check-ins went unanswered. That means thousands of souls went dark. We don't know why. Equipment failure, raider raids, or perhaps the deep quiet swallowed them whole. I've got drone scouts lined up for tomorrow's dawn survey. If I hear nothing by 0700, I'll broadcast coordinates for a search party. A small caravan of refugees, 20 people with 8 donkeys, tried moving east toward rumored safe. Since they left 3 days ago, 2 days ago, they called in panic. We're stuck in the Dust Bowl south of Sundance. Donkeys refusing to move, water's gone, kids crying. I sent coordinates for a hidden spring they might reach by nightfall. We never heard from them again. Each of these failures is a blow. Alone, tragic. Together, a spiral. I can feel the tension in the static, fear and frustration. Raider activity intensifies. Yesterday at 2200 hours, a gang of 30, armored pickups, rusted rifles, scorched flags, swept through the settlement of Ridgecrest, 2 miles upriver. They hit the water cistern first, smashing valves, draining barrels, then torched the windmill. The survivors barricaded themselves in a schoolhouse. 4 children were taken. I broadcast the alert immediately. If you're in Ridgecrest, head north along the washed-out irrigation canal. Avoid the highway. I've marked safe passage on my map. Listen for the 3 short pulses at 2230. That's your signal. A handful made it out, others didn't. I don't have an exact count, only fragments, a broken radio tape, frantic whispers, and the smell of smoke carried on the wind. When the raiders leave, they leave nightmares. Walls scorched, Fields trampled, families shattered. And they're not just opportunists, they're organized. They've got scouts, code words, and listening posts. They intercept broadcasts, adapt tactics, and move faster than we can warn. Tonight, I've updated my anti-raider protocols. Signal mimicry. Vary your broadcast patterns so raiders can't predict when you'll air. Decoy transmissions. Send false coordinates on a decoy frequency to lure them away from vulnerable spots. Noise traps. Hang empty cans and tripwires around your perimeter to give early warning. Smoke screens. Keep jars of phosphorus-rich powder. When ignited, it creates thick white smoke that blinds night vision optics. Use these tactics sparingly. If raiders catch on, they won't broadcast. They'll burn you out. Just as we brace for human threats, nature unleashes new ones. 3 geomagnetic storms struck within 48 hours this week. Each one brought radiation levels in open areas up by 60% above baseline, levels once reserved for high-altitude pilots. Storm 1 eroded the cables feeding the 2 remaining outposts. Repeaters. We lost Echo Ridge. Storm 2 ionized the air over the eastern plains, causing spontaneous electrical discharges that set dry grass ablaze. 2 square miles went up in flames. Storm 3. A massive CME delivered a pulse so strong it fried unshielded electronics for a 150-mile radius. My spare transmitter blew in the process. I jury-rigged a replacement from parts scavenged in an abandoned ham shack. Tonight's forecast: a level 3 geomagnetic storm arriving between Oro 200 and 500. Expect surges in pipelines, if you have them, spikes in local radiation, and erratic behavior from any device with a circuit longer than 6 inches. Shelter deep, cover windows with metal foil, and don't be surprised if compasses spin uselessly. Amid chaos, whispers of something new have surfaced, a phenomenon survivors call the Green Horizon. They say that in the hour before dawn, the southern sky glows neon emerald, like an aurora, but deeper, more alive. Some claim it's a sign of a pocket of still intact magnetosphere, where radiation dips and crops grow. Last night, a lone wanderer named Tariq phoned in from a canyon 40 miles southeast. I saw it. The sky bled green. I pitched a tent, ran. Sensors? It shielded a circular area about 500 meters across. I found dandelion shoots thriving in the ash. I marked GPS coordinates. I cross-checked old maps. Those canyons lie near a cluster of ancient subterranean caverns, rumored to hold iron-rich deposits. If Tariq is right, the iron could be generating a local field strong enough to repel solar particles. That would be the first significant pocket recorded since the flip tonight. I broadcast Tariq's coordinates, but with a caveat. Approach with caution. Raiders will swarm rumors. Only 5 people per expedition equipped with respirators. Radiation could be high at the edges. Pack minimal gear, water, food for 5 days. Geiger counter, compass. Yes, still useful at the margin. Watch for falling rock in the canyon. This could be our first real break. A place to grow barley, to filter radiation, to build a micro-greenhouse. But if it's a trap, raider ambush, geologic vent spewing gas, or a myth, it could cost more lives than it saves. Micro-communities, our best hope, aren't immune to fracture. I've received reports of infighting in 3 settlements. Red Butte. Leaders accused each other of hoarding medicine. Blood was drawn over 3 doses of antibiotics. 2 Pines. A coup toppled the council when the generator failed. Half voted for surrender to raiders, half for guerrilla resistance. They split into 2 factions and now operate separately. Canyon Reservoir Outpost. Anger over refugee intake caps exploded into a riot. Barricades were torn down. Tents burned. It took Omar's old maps and a night march to restore order. Social cohesion is as critical as any resource. I preach on air. Hold your councils in the open air. Record votes transparently, rotate leadership monthly. Share losses as well as gains. Use disputes as opportunity for dialogue, not dominance. But my voice can only go so far. I fear that tomorrow's crisis might be among ourselves. Then there's the static anomalies, strange bursts of a patterned signal I can't decode. They sound like a heartbeat. Thump, 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 under the crackle. I've tried triangulating. The source drifts hundreds of miles over the course of hours. Some say it's another station, an unknown voice trying to make contact. Others swear it's the Earth itself, the magnetic field pulsing in spasms. A few conspiracy theorists claim it's a test from bunker dwellers or private military enclaves. Tonight I'll broadcast constant loops of SOS in Morse on alternate frequencies, hoping to provoke a response. To the heartbeat station, identify yourself. We are survivors. We seek allies. No guarantees. But if it's human, we deserve to know who's out there. In the face of mounting threats, desperate, people innovate. I've heard of two remarkable breakthroughs this week. The solar wind reactor, an improvised device built by a group in Grand Valley. They used expended Maxwell capacitors and old car alternators to create a small-scale magnet generator. It produced a field strong enough to protect a 10-meter radius from radiation for 8 hours. If they can scale it, it could transform life under open skies. The biofilter fungus. A mycologist-turned-survivor in Timber Creek discovered a local mushroom that absorbs heavy metals and radiation. She's cultivating it in barrels. Preliminary tests show it can purify 2 liters of water per kilogram. Of dried mycelium, I'll air interviews with both inventors tomorrow, if I can reach them. Raids and storms may cut the link, but these breakthroughs kindle hope. All this weighs on me, I confess. Sometimes I sit in the dark, staring at the transmitter panel, convinced my next broadcast will be my last. I dream of finding my brother's recorder, ever ticking in a frozen plane wreck and coaxing life back into it. I dream of Omar's face when I perfect the reactor, but fear creeps in. What if the reactor draws raiders? What if the fungus spores mutate into something lethal? What if the green horizon is a mirage? Still I breathe, I climb this ridge, and I tell you everything. Because if I stop, the story ends. And without story, we lose ourselves. So here we stand, teetering at the edge of action. Will you join a small expedition toward the green horizon? Will you reinforce your micro-community with new protocols tonight? Will you rig your radio to hunt down the heartbeat signal? Will you build a makeshift reactor, or abandon the idea as too dangerous? Tonight, you decide. The rising action is upon us. The threads of fate, water, food, fuel, human bonds are pulling tighter. One more failure, one more triumph, and the current will sweep us into the climax. Be ready. The next broadcast at dawn will tell us who moved, who stayed, and who survived. This is Marisol Ortega on Station 11.3. Hold fast, hold hope. The storm is coming, and we'll face it together. Station 11.3, broadcasting through the dawn haze. If you tuned in overnight, you know the parameters. Tariq's coordinates for the Green Horizon expedition, the heartbeat signal on 7.62 MHz, and the looming Level 3 geomagnetic storm. Tonight's report comes from a place of reckoning, where hope and danger converge, and every choice could be the turning point. At 02:30 hours, I slipped into my boots, loaded my pack with water jugs, spare batteries, a hand crank radio, and the last vial of radiation-neutralizing serum salvaged from Randy's pharmacy. 5 of us gathered under the flaring glow of my headlamp. Tariq, the wanderer who first reported the green horizon. Lean, bearded, with eyes like flint. He carried a Geiger counter and a hand-drawn canyon map. Jenna, the teacher from Laramie, whose basement full of children I couldn't abandon. She brought a satchel of bent copper wiring, makeshift Faraday shields. Old Malik, 72, ex-miner from Buena Vista, muscular as a mule. He packed a climbing harness, ropes, and a battered pickaxe. Sherry, a medic from Two Pines whose knowledge of fungal biofilters saved our spring last week. She carried fungus cultures in glass jars. Me, Marisol Ortega, their guide, their voice on the ether, their last thread to civilization. We drove, my converted diesel jeep, until the rocks scraped the belly. then hiked 12 miles under a sky trembling with auroral green. Each step crunched dry shale. Every breath tasted grit. Overhead, the aurora flickered, ashen white, then sickly green like a wound in the sky. By 0400, we reached the canyon rim. I switched on my Geiger counter, 0.8 mes/HR, twice the background here, but hundreds lower than yesterday's readings. The walls yawned down in jagged layers, sulfur-stained and broiling with unseen heat. Tariq pointed to a narrow ledge where green shoots glimmered against ash. "That's the edge," he whispered. "Beyond that, radiation drops." We roped into harnesses and rappelled down 50 men-hours of fractured limestone. Malik's pickaxe chipped loose pebbles. Jenna guided with copper-shielded lanterns. Sari monitored each pulse of the Geiger. At the bottom, we crossed a shallow steam vent. Hot water bubbling through fissures, steam rising like ghostly hands. Then we saw it. A circular meadow 40 meters across, rimmed by jagged rocks. Grass grew in tufts, neon green and tall. Dandelions stood 2 feet high, their leaves broad and glossy. Small pools reflected the aurora, shimmering emerald. It was real. Tariq knelt by the grass and brushed ash from a stem. He placed the Geiger probe against the ground, and the counter plummeted to 0.1 MSV/HR, below even ridgecrest levels. It felt like stepping into a sanctuary. "Local magnetism," he said, voice trembling. "Iron deposits below, field intact." He pulled out a handheld IDE, an improvised magnet generator he'd cobbled from alternator coils. Tariq flipped the switch. A hum, a low vibration. Sparks of static danced across his fingertips. The air seemed to settle, heavy dust drifting, downward. Sari released a vial of biofilter spores. They drifted in the calm air, settling like fine snow on the grass. We all breathed deeper. The wind had no grit. The silence felt safe. For the first time in months, I closed my eyes and felt peace. Then came the thunder. A roar, low and rolling, unlike any winter storm I'd heard. We looked up. Dark clouds churning overhead, laced with green lightning. A geomagnetic pulse intensified. My Geiger spiked from 0.1 to 2.3 MSV/HR in seconds. Sparks arced off the generator coils. The static on my radio erupted into a banshee. "Scream! Storm's on us!" I shouted. "We need cover!" We sprinted for the cavern entrance, a narrow crack leading into the rock. Malik and Jenna hauled the generator. Sari scooped the fungal cultures. Tariq dragged the hoses and tools. I watched as Aurora burned above, coiling like a serpent, until the sky split open with blinding light. We slammed into the cavern's mouth, just as the first strike hit. A pulse of electromagnetic force rattled the air. Pebbles rained from the ceiling. I felt it in my bones, the planet's heart beating violently. Inside, the cavern was cool, damp, pitch black except for our lanterns. I dropped to my knees, hands on the earth. The storm howled outside, a wall of noise. Our makeshift magnet generator slivered out a thin bubble of calm. Inside, the counter read 0.3 MSV/R. Outside, it surged past 5.0 MSV/HR. We sat in silence, watching the fungal spores drift down, embedding themselves in the moss-lined floor. Moments stretched, then hours. The storm raged until dawn, shaking the ground like an earthquake. Each pulse threatened to melt every wire we'd brought, every line we'd laid. When the storm finally eased, we emerged to a world changed. The meadow stood, but the rim rocks bore new cracks. Steam vents hissed hotter. The green horizon had held, but at a cost. The storm had enlarged the vent fissures. Heat warped the generator's casing. Sari's fungal cultures were half sterilized by heat, and then we saw them. Footprints in the ash, boots heavy-soled heading toward the meadow. Raider prints. Tariq gripped my arm. "They'll strip it. They'll take everything." He looked at the generator coils, at the spore jars, at the green shoots trembling under ash dust. What do we do? We had two choices. Defend the oasis. We could rig traps. Malik's pickaxe. Jenna's copper lines carrying static shocks. Noise traps at the rim. We could try to hold this sanctuary, fight for the first safe haven in a dying world. Evacuate with evidence. We could record data, Geiger logs, soil samples, fungal cultures, and haul them back to Station 11.3 to micro-communities desperate for hope. Then leave the meadow to the raiders, relinquishing this gift to the wild. I felt the weight of every life relying on this broadcast. If we held the oasis, we might save a handful in the immediate area, but risk annihilation if the raiders overwhelmed us. If we evacuated, we'd lose the first true magnet refuge, but spread the proof of its existence wider. My voice shook when I spoke. We record what we can. We take the generator coils, the spores, the soil. We document it, coordinates, readings, samples. We carry it back. Then we blow the entrance to slow them down. I gestured to a cache of explosives salvaged from an old mining rig, enough to collapse the cavern mouth. This must live in memory, not in ownership. Tariq nodded. Sari packed. The brittle jars. Malik unscrewed coils, Jenna rewound copper. I copied readings into my journal. Time-stamped entries. 5:12 Storm Peak, 6.1 MES VHR. 0547 Field Strength, 0.89 MEMT. 0603 Spore Germination Viable. Each line felt like a declaration. Science endures. We set charges at the cavern mouth. I hit the detonator with a twist of wire and a spark from my hand-cranked generator. The cave entrance groaned, then thundered inward. Stones fell, dust roiled, and the meadow rim closed in. We emerged onto the ridge at sunrise, carrying the weight of sacrifice. The generator coils were warped but intact. The fungal cultures in sealed vials glowed pale. I clutched the notebook, our testament to possibility. On the radio I broadcast, Station 11.3 to all survivors. We found a refuge of green, coordinates 38.24 degree UN, 107.16 degree W, magnetic field pocket at 0.89 MT, radiation 0.1 MES V.HR, samples secured. Entrance collapsed to delay raiders. Data logs coded in this broadcast. Build microreactors with steel deposits. Cultivate biofilter fungus using provided spore samples. This oasis exists, but not forever. Use knowledge, spread it. Hope cannot be hoarded. My voice cracked, then steadied. I played back raw audio clips of the storm, the generator hum, Tariq's gasp of relief. I described each moment of terror and triumph. The static cleared. Voices crackled in response. Wonder, disbelief, excitement. We had crossed the turning point. The green horizon would live in stories, in labs, in budding fields, wherever someone dared to build. The risk of raiders, the wrath of the planet, the fragility of life. None could erase the fact that we had witnessed renewal. On the descent, I paused at the canyon rim. The sky was sober now, pale gold, tinged with pink. I thought of Alberto and Omar, of every soul lost in the flip. I pressed my hand to the cold stone, feeling their absence and their presence. Science had betrayed us, then saved us. Humanity had fractured, then united. If only for a fleeting dawn. I whispered into Pool, "The wind, this one's for you." And then I climbed toward home, toward Station 11.3, bearing proof that survival is not an illusion. The turning point had arrived, and we stepped through, scarred but unbroken. Station 11.3, midnight broadcast. The world feels different now, lighter yet heavy with consequence. The turning point has passed, and we carry its aftermath in our bones and voices. Here's what happened next. The hike back was silent, but for labored breaths and the occasional clinking of sample vials. The generator coils we carried rattled in their canvas wraps. The fungal cultures lay snug in insulated pouches, beneath a sky still faintly glowing from last night's aurora. We walked toward a future we'd reshaped. Every so often, someone would pause and look back. Tariq stared at the collapsed cavern entrance, eyes shining with both loss and relief. "It'll buy time," he said, "long enough for someone to build the first reactor." Jenna hummed a melody her students used to sing in Laramie. It sounded fragile in the empty air, like a lullaby to a world reborn. Malik carried the heaviest pack but led the way, his gait steady. He kept muttering, "Iron heart, iron heart," a mantra against his memory of losing muscle in the fields of his youth. Sari gently tapped her vial of spores, whispering to them as if they were children, "Grow strong. Grow true." I walked between them, journal in hand, heart pounding. Every step felt sacred. We were no longer just survivors. We were witnesses to possibility. Back at Station 11-3, I broadcast the full report, patching in remote outposts and handheld radios. The effect was immediate. Grand Valley. A small team promises to reverse engineer the alternator coil reactor by week's end. They already have steel deposits nearby. Timber Creek. Sari's fungus samples are out of quarantine. Early tests show they reduce water contamination by 75%. They plan to scale up production in barrel farms. Two Pines. The factions reunited after hearing the news. They dismantled barricades and agreed on a shared reactor site. They sent volunteers north to learn reactor assembly. Ridgecrest. Raiders temporarily dispersed. Rumors say they fear the reactor as much as they crave it. Villagers fortified a secondary outpost in the hopes of protecting future technology. Messages poured in. Static-laced voices trembling with excitement, cautious optimism, outright disbelief. The broadcast frequencies buzzed with plans, engineers, sketching schematics, farmers scouting test plots, doctors organizing medical trials for radiation burns. The network of micro-communities had found a common cause, but not all ripples were positive. A few replies warned of Raider scouts tracking our broadcasts. Others cautioned that the reactor plans require specialized tools and metalworking skills many settlements lack. Still, the overall tenor shifted from fear to action. In the days that followed, I kept the station on round-the-clock standby, 2 hours at dawn, 2 at dusk, broadcasting updates, coordinating groups, answering questions. But I also took moments alone to reflect. Loss versus gain. We abandoned a sanctuary. The collapsed cavern will take centuries to reopen, if ever. Yet we traded physical refuge for knowledge. Was it worth it? Every day, survivors in remote outposts prove it was. Survivor's guilt. The faces of those who died on the convoy. The refugees stuck in the dust bowl. The Raider victims at Ridgecrest. They haunt my dreams. I remind myself, our choices couldn't save everyone. We did what we could. Scientific duty. My life was once about publication. Now it's about preservation. Each data point, each sample is a testament. If I stop recording, the oasis is just a rumor again. Human connection. The messages from Jenna's students, sketch drawings of green fields, pull at my heart. The laughter of children in makeshift schools gives me more hope than any reactor ever could. I carry their voices in my mind. Pleas, prayers, plans. They remind me why I broadcast. Not for glory, not for history, but for the single act of telling someone they are not alone. Within weeks, small test plots emerged near boreholes and depressions, biofilter gardens, in Canyon Reservoir. Sari's team inoculated soil with her fungus. Within 10 days, water pH stabilized, sediment dropped, heavy metal readings halved. Communities now use sludge from makeshift barrels to fertilize parched fields. Magnetized greenhouse in Grand Valley. Engineers built a reactor coil array around a 10-meter dome. Inside, dandelions thrived, now followed by barley and chickpeas. Power draw is minimal, just enough to sustain the local field. Seed banks. Inspired by the green horizon, settlements started collecting hardy plant seeds, wild grasses, acacia, pods, pumpkin vines, testing germination under controlled fields. Results are tentative but promising. The first green shoots in years are symbols, living proof that Earth can heal when we apply knowledge with care. But hope remains a balance. In Ridgecrest, Raider scouts returned, probing weakened defenses. In Two Pines, ideological rifts reappeared. Tech-focused youth versus traditionalists who fear technology's unintended consequences. In remote outposts, water thefts grew as populations swelled. I broadcast reminders. Progress requires vigilance. Defend your gains. Educate your young. Share knowledge, not just resources. Hold councils, rotate watch shifts, respect limits. Technology without stewardship is destruction. My words carry weight, but only if they echo in community halls and campfire circles. The battle for survival now includes a battle for values, cooperation over conquest, curiosity over complacency. I find myself changing. The adrenaline that once fueled scavenging now drives teaching. My journal entries shift. Tone from day 326, reactor tests begin. To day 340, children plant seeds in dome 2. Laughter returns. I dream less of my brother and more of the future my voice might help shape. My broadcasts include bedtime stories for children, tales of green fields and singing birds, and survival bulletins for hardened adults. I read poetry once. Now I recite it on air. In iron fields and fungal blooms, we carve a path through silent rooms. From shattered earth and broken sky, we learn to stand and not to die. I never thought I'd become a poet. But when science and heart collide, new things emerge. 6 months on, coastal enclaves report first clean fish catches since the flip. Mussels in a protected cove grew back. Mountain springs recalibrated by biofilters yield drinkable water. For small villages, migratory birds returned in small flocks along rehabilitated riparian corridors. Solar wind reactors power medical sterilizers. Children survive surgeries again. Nothing is widespread. Nothing is guaranteed. But the signs are clear. Earth responds when given a chance. Now, as I sit before the microphone tonight, I realize that falling action isn't about calm. It's about reckoning. We're living with the consequences of our choices. We chose knowledge over sanctuary. We lost a haven, but gained a blueprint. We chose cooperation over isolation. We invite complications, but build resilience. We chose to broadcast truth over hoarding power. We risked raiders, but empowered many. The cost is real. Lives lost, land scarred, hearts heavy. Yet the reward is life itself. Tomorrow, I'll broadcast the coordinates of a new test plot. I'll connect a medic in Timber Creek with engineers in Grand Valley. I'll share a poem from a child in Ridgecrest. I'll warn of a dust storm brewing in the west, because falling action is not an end. It's a pivot toward renewal. We're still scrabbling in ash, but now we dig for seeds. We're still rationing water, but now we share filtration designs. We're still haunted by loss, but now we comfort each other. We stand on a ridge between what was and what could be. The earth hums differently now. It's the vibration of collective effort, of ideas transmitted through broken radios, of hands working soil, of lines of code and coils of copper forging a new world. This is Marisol Ortega. We survived the turning. Point now we shape the aftermath, together. I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I know this much. We are neither saved nor doomed, only alive. And as long as we breathe, there's work to be done. The green shoots born of steel and fungus are trembling in the ash, just as our fragile alliances tremble under the weight of fear and hope. We have traded sanctuary for knowledge, isolation for community, and in doing so, we have reshaped the very ground beneath our feet. The cavern at the green horizon lies sealed, yet its story flows free in every broadcast, in every journal entry, in every careful measurement passed from hand to hand across battered maps. In the weeks since our return, micro-reactors have hummed to life beneath domes of patched canvas and scavenged glass. Children plant seeds in cracked soil, their small hands reminding us what we fight for. Yet each sprout is vulnerable, subject to drought, to raids, to the whims of weather that no longer obeys old calendars. When the dust storms roll, they strip away topsoil and dreams alike. When solar flares scorch the sky, they fry wiring and flicker out lights we have finally learned to cherish. We live on borrowed time, yet in that borrowing we find purpose. to protect each flicker of green, each heartbeat spared by clean water, each story carried safely through the static. Every night, I broadcast the latest weather patterns, the new reactor designs, the routes cleared of raiders. I read messages from farmers who coax barley to life in clay pots, from engineers who debate coil dimensions, from medics who report fungal filter successes. But I also read the prayers and poems, sketches of a world restored, letters of gratitude and sorrow. Pleased to remember those we lost. Marisol Ortega, the geophysicist, has given way to Marisol Ortega, the storyteller, the steward of hope, the midwife of renewal. I stitch together science and song because facts alone cannot warm the bone or heal the heart. We need myth to give us courage, and data to give us direction. We are paying a price. I think of the refugees who never reached the spring, of the eerie convoy that vanished into sagebrush, of the settlement that burned when raiders mistook our coordinates for bait. These ghosts accompany every calculation, every announcement. Survivor's guilt has become my silence as much as my speech. In the quiet hours before dawn, I cradle Alberto's recorder and Omar's helmet, hoping to catch a whisper of their voices in the hiss of static. I speak into the void for them and for ourselves, so that no name is forgotten, no sacrifice unrewarded. Yet even in that grief, there is beauty. I have seen communities gather around makeshift reactors, children's laughter echoing off dome walls. I have watched elders teach younger generations how to read the sky, how to set snares, how to filter water through charcoal and cloth. I have witnessed the moment when a dandelion bloomed under artificial magnetism, when the first barley stalks swayed like hope incarnate in a plastic-lined dome. These moments remind me that survival is not merely endurance. Survival is creation. We build worlds from the remnants of the old, and though our materials are scrap and memory, the structures we raise can shelter more than bodies. They can shelter dreams. We will never be free of the flip's legacy. The magnetic poles will not revert on our watch. The fractures in our atmosphere will not heal in an instant. Radiation will remain a silent partner to every step we take outside shelter. Storms will continue to break fences and drip acid upon thirsty soil. Yet each challenge also carries its own solution. A new field of iron coils here, a patch of fungus. There, a radio relay stitched between survivors beyond the horizon. The world has changed irrevocably, but change is not the enemy. It is the canvas upon which we paint our tomorrow. So when I sign off each night, I do so with a promise. This voice will return at dawn. I will bring you weather, warnings, innovations, and stories. I will not let the world forget who we are and why we continue. And when dawn breaks, if it does, I will climb the ridge again, check my batteries, clean the microphone, and speak into the empty air until it answers back. Because even if only one person listens, even if only one life is lengthened by a tip or a tail, then Station 11.3 has fulfilled its purpose. I know some will argue that the future lies in bunkers, in underground vaults, in waiting out the chaos, until the planet rewrites itself. But I have seen what happens when light goes out and voices fall silent. The living become ghosts, stories vanish, and the Earth reclaims everything in a quiet so total, no one remembers what was lost. Better to stand in the open, build, teach, fight, and record. Better to risk each sunrise than to wager all on a final sunset. Our work is not over. We must guard the homegrown fields against raiders and dust storms. We must refine reactor designs to run on less power, spread spores that cleanse more water, develop seeds that germinate under harsher days. We must teach more hands to wield tools, more ears to pick up distant signals, more hearts to hold each other when hope falters. We must write not only journals and logs, but songs and stories, so that our children know not just how we survived, but why. I sign off now with one last thought. The world may hum with uncertainty and crackle with danger, but in every vibration there is a rhythm of resistance. We are that rhythm. We are the pulse that refuses to stop. Wherever you are, on a ridge, in a bunker beside a dying spring, listen for it, feel it, and join in. Keep speaking, keep building, keep tending the fragile spark of life until it blazes so brightly that no storm, no raider, no cosmic wind can ever snuff it out. Stay alive. Stay human. The sky is strange, but the story is ours. And as long as we speak, we endure.